Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? This is BC. Welcome back to another episode of Supreme Being. First and foremost, this podcast is sponsored by Modern Success, Team BC, right? Modern Success is my coaching program. I really recommend you guys join, especially for those of you who want to follow me closer, get help and mentorship. As you know, I'm getting censored like crazy too. So pretty soon I'll probably be only streaming and providing information on that level. But also shout out to Team BC, right? We are a nationwide real estate team. If you're interested in joining, join teambc.com. If you want to find out more about my real estate company, eXp Realty, you can go to partner with teambc.com. So huge shout out to everybody who's been supporting the podcast over the years. I think this is one of the few platforms that if I have been getting censored, it's been very, very little. All right. So let's get into it. Today, I wanted to talk about communication in regards that we have to look at this subject from a different perspective. This is the key for virtually everything that you want to achieve, acquire, become, and anything else in between. All right. So the whole point of this particular episode, and what I really want to drill into your mind today with this episode, is there's no wasted communication. Every communication is intentional. Every communication is with an end goal in mind. And I want to unpack that over the next 20, 25 minutes, because this to me is overlooked and people don't get it. And when I say communication, I'm not simply referring to speaking. Everything communicates. Everything about you communicates. Your eyes communicate. The tension or relaxation in your facial muscles, how you walk, the clothes that you wear, how you take action, how you approach activities, right? How you are when you go out, your vibe, everything communicates. Every single thing about you, 24/7, 365, how you sleep communicates a lot, right? So this is something that's inescapable. Communication, everything communicates, especially you, the vessel, the human being. And I want you to wrap your mind around that for a second, because when you realize this, like you actually get what I just said, the game changes immediately from then forward. If you apply this and you see it for what it really is, right? Your ability to acquire, your ability to make changes, your ability to influence an environment, your ability to change yourself, your ability to build skills, connect with people, whatever. Suddenly it's like, okay, I get it. It now, I don't want to say it becomes easy, but now it starts to make sense. And you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. Right? I'm turning off people when I talk to them because something about me is communicating a bad thing. Got it. Now I just need to pinpoint what that is. Right? I seem to be in a bad emotional state all the time. Okay, the way I'm communicating with myself must be off. Right? It gives you a proper perspective, and it guides and leads your mind in the right direction to look at life from a position of cause, not effect, from creation, right? And I'm creating, not I am a person who is just thrown into circumstances, right? So let's take a look at, the most basic line, which would be your spoken, right? The word, your communication. Think about that for a second, right? If I was to go out and just do a regular day in regards to like errands that I run, going to the grocery store, going to the store, and doing typical things that I do when I go out. Think about a typical week for you, right? And maybe every day you'll frequent maybe a gas station, a grocery store, a hardware store or something, right? Like you're probably going into 2 or 3 shops, businesses, locales every day virtually. Now, if you know, and we focus on this first one, which is the spoken word, and everything communicates all the time, and there's no wasted communication. Think about what you can create, opportunities, experiences, simply maximizing that in those 2 or 3 locations that you go to. Right now, suddenly life becomes a game. It's like a chessboard. It's this like video game where now you literally create what you want. I can go out and let's run 2 scenarios. One, I can go out, not talk to anybody like the average person. Hi, how are you? Fine. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. Beep, beep, beep. They check me in, right? They check my items, blah, blah, blah. I'm gone. Or now you can literally not socialize at all. You can do the self-checkout where you don't have to talk to anybody. You can keep your head down and just keep going. So let's run that as one example. And then let's run a simultaneous example of the person saying, you know what? I have the power of the spoken word in my grasp. And they go out and they're like, you know what? I'm going to talk to everybody. I'm going to get to know these shop owners where I frequent all the time. I might as well. I go there all the time, right? I'm going to start conversation. I'm going to, befriend a lot of people. Now, if I follow those two examples and those two people over the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days, the person who's talking to everybody in 120 days, man, a lot is going to change for them. Their self-esteem is going to go up. Their connections are going to go up. Their friendships are going to go up, right? They're probably going to get business if they're a business person or an entrepreneur, because it's impossible if you talk to that many people, right? Between getting numbers, Instagrams, Facebooks. I mean, it's just impossible. Befriending all the store owners of the places that you're going to. I mean, give me a break. But that second person on the right, if we're going to compare left and right, they went out with an intention. They knew that if they don't speak to anybody and they just look like everybody else and not speak like everybody else, they're communicating that they're average and they're like everybody else. So they took that power and responsibility into their own hands and said, I'm going for this thing, man. I'm going to go. And they're okay crashing and burning. You know why? Because when you start doing these types of things, it's different for you. It's different. You've never done this before. You're not used to just sparking random conversation with strangers when you're at the grocery store or someone else, and they're not open most of the time or expecting somebody to talk to them too. Now, what you'll realize is the average person is very receptive to communication if it's delivered properly. That's the interesting part, right? But all I'm doing with this first example is tweaking something so innocent, something so innocuous, something so that normal, that's woven into our life, that we just see it as a certain way. It's like, oh, I've been going to the store for years and doing this and running errands. This is just the way I do it. Yeah, but within that pattern, within that routine, where, if we're going to look at it through the lens of communication, where can this thing be maximized? Where can this thing be improved? Where can this thing be changed? That's what I'm going for, dude. Right? I'm taking something that you're already doing and hyping that up and injecting it with some life and some energy. So now you can start to create change, right? So within what you're already doing, we can only look within the scope of what you're already doing and maximize that. And dude, your world will flip upside down in a positive way. It will change. Many of you are starving, especially right now during COVID, for social interactions and new friendships and new relationships, right? Whether this is business, friendship, or romantic, it doesn't matter. Many people are starving for that. You're starving for connection, right? We get a lot of energy and it feeds our soul to be social with other people, but we're not doing it. It's not that you have to have some sort of agenda, man, but getting out there and talking to people and exchanging, man, that's the zest of life, if you ask me. Now we're getting into opinion, right? But I truly believe that that's the zest of life. Find somebody who's thriving socially, right? And they're on average going to be happier, more satisfied, more fulfilled than a person who's not. Even if monetarily compared to the other person, they're not doing as good and other circumstances aren't okay. If they have a thriving social life, and it doesn't mean that they go out every night and drink and all that, but they have friends, they interact, right? And they're having interactions back and forth all the time. Those people typically are happier than people who don't. Many people who are socially isolated end up having depression and a lot of issues, especially mentally, because they feel like nobody understands me. I don't have any friends. Think about this, what I just said. Now compare it to the fact that when you go to a prison, what's the highest and worst form of punishment? Solitary confinement, lockdown, right? You don't get to interact with any other human beings. You're stuck by yourself, right? They know how the human being operates. That's why they think that isolation is the way to break somebody down. And in most cases it is. You have to be extremely mentally strong to do something like that, right? To make it out of that sane and without any, extreme mental issues. So when we go back to this example of communication, that's just one way of looking at it. And one thing that we looked at and zoomed in here in the first 10 minutes. Isn't that interesting? Right now, I'm not saying somebody going out is going to do this 24/7, but let's say if you go out 10 times, say, hey, 3 or 4 times out of the 10 that I go out, I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to talk to one person, even if it's just hello, what's up, beautiful day, blah, 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 just to get myself in this rhythm of doing this, right? Because guess what? When you do that, remember, you're always communicating. Not only are you communicating to the individual that you're talking to, you're communicating to your environment. So now if those customers are regular and they see you talking to other people, they're already building up an image in their mind of you and what you're like and your characteristics, right? And they start gravitating towards you. Oh, this person's social. This person's cool. This person's nice. So not only is it about that particular interaction, it's what's being communicated to the world, right? And when you do this more and more, this is what builds your brand. This is what builds your reputation. This is the foundation of that. This is that powerful seed that you plant that then blossoms and grows and spreads throughout the whole forest and the world. That's the cool part about this, right? Now, let's look at some other details on that. How about in this same example that I'm giving you, we walk around with our chest up, shoulders back and relaxed and smiling, making eye contact with everybody and nodding our head like saying hello. How about how we dress? Let's not dress like we're rotting in our basement watching Netflix. Let's dress ourselves up, right? And when I say dress up, to a lot of people, oh, why are you so dressed up? It's become so common to dress like shit that now even looking decent is, oh man, you're dressing up. Make that normal for you. Make dress up your normal. How about that? Do that. That, walking straight, smiling, making eye contact, talking to people right there, bro. You will change the game just doing that in a communication standpoint, right? If we're specifically zooming in on that, everything about you will begin to communicate to the world and these individuals that you're interacting with, the positive things and the proper things that you want to upload into their mind and have it understood that you're strong, you're powerful, you're confident, you're a pleasant person, you're a good businessman, all the things that you strive for. And you're like, how do I communicate this to people? You're already doing it just with that. You're already doing it just with that. So this covers all realms of what we're going for here. Right. So when a lot of people ask me these types of questions, this is how you do it. It's just, this is an unorthodox way of me teaching it to you, because you look at this as such an innocent activity. You would think, oh no, it can't be this. It has to be something else. We have to stand on the corner dressed like a clown to get attention and wave a sign for our business, or do the bus bench ad and all that other shit. Right. Instead of focusing on this from a marketing standpoint, this is infinitely more powerful than any of the things that I just said. Why? It connects with people. It's living, it's breathing, it's real. It's not a copy of you, right? Think about all the impressions online of images, right? That bus bench ad, the billboard, it's just an impression, right? That's a typical marketing communication versus this other one. It's live, it's in person, it's you, it's living. Now, the other stuff, does it work? Sure, but that supplements what you do. That supplements what you do, because if those other things, if that's all you do, your results will be limited. A person like myself who applies the teaching from this podcast will annihilate that other person. Just give me time. Once I start interacting with more people and that web spreads, oh man, then it's going to be impossible to take down, because the consistency and the effectiveness of it is times a million compared to everything else. Let's look at communication from like a business and sales standpoint for a second. I've always told people, and you can take this one, I'd recommend you write it down. The door knock, if all other factors remain equal, the door knock will beat the cold call. The cold call will beat the mailer or the marketing piece. Why? Because of the method of communication. Think about this. I go in person versus somebody calls. The call is just a voice. Me going in person, they get to see me, they get to hear me, I activate more senses, they get to meet me in person. It's a lot more powerful. The phone call will beat the mailer because you're having a live conversation with the person versus them just seeing something. Right? So if you didn't know that before, now you know it, but I just broke it down to you from a communication standpoint. That's why that will win. Now, some people will argue and say, well, what if I'm better on the phone than the guy who door knocked? Of course. That's why I said all other factors equal. Okay. So as we touch on the subject more and more, you begin to see that, okay, this is simple and it makes sense. Now it's just a matter of implementation, because when you look at this, it can seem kind of extreme. Oh man, everything communicates. Oh my God. And that's why I gave you that everyday simple example to start with. So you can start, tearing off the layers of this, opening it up like, the onion flour, right? That people used to eat where they would fry it, right? You're opening it up. And I gave you just this one piece to wet your beak, so to speak, and help you see this from a simplistic fashion, right? I want to take these, what can seem like some people is maybe super broad or complex, and break it down in a simple fashion that's palatable so you can take something from it and apply it. Okay. So at the very least, two things: start looking at things from this perspective. And number two, start doing daily action items to improve this. Everybody unanimously listening to this can raise their level of communication in regards to their gait, how they walk and how they dress, your presentation to the world. Okay. Another thing, head up. I see too many people walking, looking down or at an angle. Head up, eyes minimum straight forward. Okay. Relax the face, smile. It's not weird to smile. Okay. As long as you don't have that clown smile, you'll be okay. Right. Making eye contact with people is okay. Just don't stare at them all upset for 20 seconds. Make eye contact, nod, smile. That shows that you're not a threat. Start working on these little things. Your world will change, man. Those of you who are listening to me, maybe the men that you want to get girls, that will help you tremendously. Right. They've actually polled people. What makes somebody approachable and makes you more likely to have a conversation with them? The number one answer, smile. If you smile, people are more receptive. When you go door to door, smile. When you make phone calls, smile. Dude, smile. Take a mirror with you and smile more. That's one of the number one principal ways to communicate you and your character and what you're about instantly before anybody even comes to contact with you. Your ID, your business card, if it has a smile, it's much more impactful than if it doesn't. Stop trying to look hard and cool and tough. Nobody cares, especially if you're trying to attract people and have them do business with you. The tough guy look, the gangster look, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, shit doesn't work. Grow up. What are we, fucking 10 years old trying to be a part of a gang again? Stop the whole tough guy act, because the people who act tough aren't tough at all. They're not. I know some of the most dangerous people on this planet, like fighters, and they're the coolest motherfuckers ever until you force them to activate the other side. But they don't walk around trying to act tough, because we also know what that communicates. We don't want to scare people and come off as threatening, right? Think about this for a second. You want to attract people and be a magnet, or do you want to repel people? What do you want to do? Everything communicates. And you have to understand that some of the things that you may be doing right now are wrong. Fix them. And a lot of times it's simply common sense. It's just we need to be aware of these things more often, and we need to make sure we're implementing them more often. So eventually your normal mode of operation is very high compared to other people, to where most of the time you're on track, most of the time you're doing these things, and most of the time you're aware. Nobody's perfect, but we want to keep raising that bar so that like your minimum standard is the average person's like perfect day if they did everything right. Now you're going to create a gap between you and everybody else. Now you're going to be doing so much that will seem normal to you that it will be impossible for other people to catch up. The whole comfort and discomfort thing is a polarity that eventually shifts. And I want to kind of wrap it up like this. What's uncomfortable to you now, going out, smiling, talking to people, eventually that flips and that becomes your normal. And then you would have to force yourself to not do it. And that would be uncomfortable. That's what I mean when this polarity flips. The more you do it, right? All these things that make you uncomfortable, that maybe you don't want to do, that seem a little weird because you're not used to it. Eventually that becomes your norm. Then it becomes fun. Then you don't have to think about it anymore. And just like it was effortless for you to sit on the couch and watch Netflix or watch videos and bullshit, doing this stuff will be effortless too, because you've ingrained it into your system. So imagine if your ingrained, right, patterns of communication were the right thing to do. You would just unconsciously and naturally get what you want. And when we talk about naturals, that's all that is. They're just doing things right. They're just not aware of it, and they can't break it down from a technical standpoint unless they did this. This is why I can seem so natural in selling and everything that I do, but I can break it down for you piece by piece. That makes me a lot more lethal than somebody who's just natural, who can't really explain it to you. They're just like, well, this is just what I do. Big difference there. Big difference. Strive for that. This is what gives you the advantage. You've heard me say for years, anybody can improve their communication. Anybody. This is an even playing field. What I just said refers to that, because you can build this up. Then you'll know how you built it up, and you have every single tool in your tool belt that you need to get the results that you want, live the life that you live, get confidence, blah, 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 all that fun stuff that you want. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to be wrapping it up here. Remember, communicate with intention. There's no wasted communication. Everything has to be intentional. Okay. Shout out to Team BC, right? Love you guys. Join Team BC if you're interested. If you guys really are interested in my coaching program, I have tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 2 is for the more advanced people. Tier 1, I've opened it up to everybody, briancasella.com for that. You can also find it on all my social media, but my website, briancasella.com, is the best place to find everything. I recommend you join. Other than that, if you want to talk to me about eXp Realty, go to partnerwithteambc.com. And if you have any other questions, reach out to me and we'll have a quick chat. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Peace.